Welcome to this week's Eternal Monday, where Dragapult EX from Twilight Masquerade takes on Charizard EX Bunnelby Control. Today's game is Game 1 of the finals of the In Real Life Eternal Format tournament that took place in June 2024 at Dragon's Lair at Alamo Ranch. If you're new here, you might be wondering what the Eternal format even is. In short, it's the unlimited format with a ban list. This means that deck builders can venture all the way back to the very start of the Pokemon trading card game and make use of cards that aren't legal in the official standard or even the expanded format. This large card pool creates an exciting and fun, rich deck building experience that can be endlessly enjoyable for all types of players of the Pokemon trading card game. From the most skilled to the newest of new, from the biggest tryhard to the kitchen table champion, the Eternal format has something for everyone. Unsure where to get started? I've got a getting started video on this very YouTube channel that is a great crash course for how to get into the format. Additionally, there is now a page on justinbasil.com that features a wide variety of decks for the Eternal format. Both this page and the getting started video are linked in this video's description. Now, on to today's game. Players are getting shuffled up here, getting set up. Here we have the Dragapult player on the left, and we have our control player on the right. This is a very new, unique build of control for this format. This player has created this list for the format pretty much from scratch. See a Hisuian and Heavy Ball getting a Charmander. That's the Vivid Voltage Charmander, if you're unfamiliar. It has that collect attack. Grab that. Do you see a Bunnelby from Primal Clash in the active spot that has the ancient trait that lets it attack twice each turn? So it can either use Rototiller to mill or use its other attack to retrieve some cards from the discard pile here. See an Ultra Ball discarding a couple cards here, including a Radiant Charizard throwing down a Zacian V. Looks like the control player here is just hoping to set up at this point. Going to use Intrepid Sword most likely to draw 3 cards. You also have the effect of being able to attach Metal Energy you find there to your Pokemon, but in this case it doesn't really matter because the deck's not running any Metal Energy. Anyway, we have Dragapult's turn now. Dragapult's going to discard a Guzma off of Mysterious Treasure, looking through the deck. Looks like they found a Dreepy. They're kind of doing a quick price check, just trying to figure out what it is they have available to them. Finding, looks like, okay, maybe that Dreepy was already down and I missed it. Another Dreepy here. So 2 Dreepy down. That Radiant Alakazam start is a little off. I wonder if that second Dreepy, or that first Dreepy rather, was a top deck. So we see an attachment of a Float Stone and the Ino there. Ino, always good to see. So we got a new hand, another Dreepy, and a wow, Buddy Buddy Poffin. That's quite the start. I know who this player is, and they have very crazy starts all the time, though. So that is not a surprise. They have like the best luck. Not always, but typically. And then, jeez, that's such a good start. So they have double Ball Toy ready to go in for Claydol, and they have triple Dreepy, and they're even willing to potentially sacrifice a Dreepy, not knowing what they're playing against here. See a Nest Ball finding something, but what? This deck runs so many 1-ups. When we get to the deck list portion at the end of this video, you're going to be like, what is this, GLC? There's so many 1-ups in this deck. And it's obviously not completely singleton, but the deck is very heavy on the 1-ups. We do see a Luxray V. Luxray V going to be the menace in this particular matchup. It looks like Lapras coming down and finding Arven. Arven getting a Tool for Sealstone and an item card. That is going to be the Rare Candy. Force Sealstone being attached to Luxray V. Going to use that Force Sealstone to start Alchemy, finding any card in the deck in exchange for using your V-Star power for the game. So found a card. We don't know what that card is. It was concealed from us, but we do have a Charizard EX coming out to play. Attaching some energy, a couple to the Luxray V and 1 to the Bunnelby. Most likely looking to retreat out of the Bunnelby and to go after the Dreepy Dragapult player's hand with that Luxray V. Disrupt that option, make it so they cannot evolve up with Rare Candy. I'm just going in with Rototiller, milling the top 2 cards off of the Dragapult player's deck, losing a special charge and a floatstone. Losing a special charge isn't the greatest. This particular build of Dragapult is now, at this point, by the time you're seeing this, a little dated. It's only running just the 4 double dragon energy. This build was not running a counter energy like my build does and like the newer builds of the deck does. So unfortunately, that's a little sketchy to lose that special charge to get the special energies back into the deck. And then we see a Claydol come down. Claydol super good. We do see a double dragon energy attached to the active Dreepy, which is something nice. Okay, that was the player apparently very confused about the power hand extension there. Power hand extension does not let you just play it down whenever you feel like. It is just like Counter Catcher in that you have to be behind on prize cards, and it has the effect of Counter Catcher with another option. So you also can move an energy from their basic, from their active rather, to another of their Pokemon, which is pretty good. And there we see Dragapult EX. Dragapult EX going to be a great target for that rare candy if there is one in hand, and I'm assuming there is. Not much of a reason to go after that. If there isn't, then there is indeed a rare candy. So we do have Dragapult EX in play. That is going to be pretty good. Going to Guzma up the Charizard, hitting into the Charizard, and then spreading some damage counters with Dragapult's attack here. So they use that Guzma to basically pivot into the Radiant Alakazam, back out of the Radiant Alakazam, so they can get the Dragapult back out and then hit into that Charizard. And they've decided to knock out that Bunnelby to take their first prize card. So Double Dragon Energy is, of course, a special energy. It's providing Double Rainbow. And here, Power Hand Extension is doing what it's supposed to do. What it's supposed to do, rather. It has moved that Double Dragon Energy off of the active Dragapult and onto the Claydol, I believe. And because Claydol is not a Dragon-type Pokemon, it has to be discarded. So it just ends up being an instant discard of that special energy, which is pretty powerful. The AZ is going to scoop up the Charizard EX there. We already saw that scoop, which is pretty fun. All right, so we see a Power Hand extension. Another one, this time using the Counter Catcher effect, Claydol being dragged into the active spot. Very, very brutal here. Unfortunately, that Floatstone is, of course, on that Radiant Alakazam. And now we're going to see an Unfair Stamp. Unfair Stamp going to bring our Dragapult player down to just 2 cards and the control player up to 5. See, Livable. Livable going to find some friends from the deck. We do see a Pidgey. This deck does run the Pidgey support line. Good to see here. Pidgey, very, very useful in this format. Squishy, but useful. And then we see Luxray V. Luxray V is going to discard Arven from the hand with the effect of its attack. Luxury Ball, the top deck there. Luxury Ball going to find the next big thing for our Dragapult player. Dragapult player really hoping to find something great. I'm going to see a Claydol here. Most likely going to end up being a double Claydol. So that was from the previous turn. We are going to see a fresh Claydol. So this is going to be for 6. We do see a new energy. So we do have an ability, or we do have the means, rather, of attaching an energy. And we're also seeing an Evolution Incense. Evolution Incense is going to find any Evolution Pokemon, most likely going to go for a Dracloak. Dracloak has that airmail-like ability, that trade-off, rather, where you're able to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of those cards into your hand, and put the other on the bottom of your deck. And I was right, that was indeed a Dracloak that they got. Evolved up another Dreepy. We see a Stormy Mountains. Stormy Mountains kind of just blowing it. Maybe just to thin the hand for an extra draw there. Not in love with that, but I get it. Looks like our Dragapult player is kind of questioning what they're doing next here. Gonna discard, perhaps. They kind of need to hold on to cards so they don't lose everything to Luxray. Okay. They're going to use another Claydol. See a Muscle Band there. Muscle Band's really good in Dragapult. That was an innovation from this player that my deck later ended up adopting. Super, super good. Looks like that Muscle Band was attached to that Dragapult. And we're just going to see it pass. Unfortunately, this player was not able to find a way to get that Claydol out of the active spot. Most likely they were hoping to find a Versus Seeker off the Claydol. Unfortunately, they were not so lucky and missed it. We see another Ultra Ball on our Luxury player side, our Control player rather. Going to get another Pokemon out, and we're going to see an in. So this is going to be a 6-5 split here. Looks like our Control player is just looking to find some other cards. Very curious what they're hoping to do for here. Hope probably pieces of that Pidgeot just to have access to whatever kind of disruption they want each turn. But unfortunately, at the moment, they don't have that. They are discarding that Heart Gold and Soul Silver Cleffa. Cleffa going to go to the discard pile. Has an Eek that lets you draw some extra cards. We're just seeing a Pidgey come down via Quick Ball, taking it to the hand. So just thinning it out of the deck effectively at this point. Does look like they're planning to retreat, perhaps? So we're going to see an Ordinary Rod, perhaps? Yes. So we're going to see an Ordinary Rod from the hand. Okay, now I'm questioning life. It looks like they're planning for an Ordinary Rod. There's the Ordinary Rod. Okay, it goes down. There's the Ordinary Rod. Ordinary Rod was prepared for. So we're going to see the Bunnelby, the Radiant Charizard, and 2 Fire Energy going into the deck here off of that Ordinary Rod, rather. And then, yes. Okay. A bit of shuffle up. Charizard. Okay, and then it looks like it's just a pass. So no energy attachment this turn, which is a little odd. Whiff the attachment, unfortunately. We do see a Versus Seeker this time for the Dragapult player, so we are going to see a hit into the active. So Dragapult is going to do 220 to the active Zacian V and 60 to one of the bench with, or to the bench in general, with damage counters. So that will knock out the active Zacian V and the Pidgey. So just going to go straight for a couple of, 3 prize cards in this instance. 2 knockouts, 3 prize cards. Going to throw the Bunnelby back in the active spot, immediately attaching a Fire Energy to it, hoping and praying that something is going to happen here for the mill effect on that Bunnelby, or perhaps they're really needing something from the discard pile and hoping to recover it. Perhaps maybe making a second use of that Unfair Stamp. At this point, though, our Dragapult player is pretty well situated. They're down to just what looks like 2 prize cards. They took 2 and then, or 1 and then 3. Arven's going to get that TM Devolution out. And only that TM Devolution? No. So TM Devolution and a Versus Seeker, probably to recover a card here. Or one of the supporters for next turn. So Arven, very useful. TM Devolution going to kind of cause a little bit of havoc on the Dragapult side here. We're going to throw all those evolved Dragapults back in the hand. This really does put the Dragapult player in quite a predicament. It's going to take a little bit because at this point they no longer have any Dracloak in play, and because of that they can't just evolve back into the Dragapult EX and just start immediately attacking. However, they can still make it happen. Dracloak goes down. Claydol goes back down. Another Claydol goes back down. Another Dracloak goes down. So at this point, they just need Rare Candy, and they're there. But they got to find the Rare Candy. There's the energy on one of the bench Dracloak. Interestingly enough, that Dracloak could take a knockout on the active Bunnelby if it were to get to the active spot via some means, perhaps a retreat off of the active Dreepy. Although it would be interesting just to have evolved to active and take the knockout that way. Guzman Hala looks like it's being eyed up here by our Dragapult player. Okay, so we have the Stormy Mountains discarded and another card discarded there. Technical Machine Devolution on this side, which is an interesting choice. discarding the Pidgeot from Fire and Leaf Green, getting a third Dracloak, probably planning to just evolve the active and attack that way. I mean, it seems perfectly reasonable in this particular case. You're not going to get the Dragapult out, but you don't really need it. You can still take a knockout, get that extra prize card, get yourself closer so that all you would need is a Guzma or a Versus Seeker to take out that Lapras with ease. Using those draw options here. See a Dracloak drawing back into the Guzman Hala. And kind of weighing their choices here. I do see that knockout on the Bunnelby. Bunnelby is gone. So at this point, we just have to see what becomes of this Luxray. Luxray does still have that damage counter on it from earlier. Luxury Ball, going to search the deck on the control player's side and see what sort of options they still have available to them. Going to get that form variation Ditto. Ditto going onto the bench there. Going to quickly recover something from the discard pile using Ditto's effect. Oh, nope, actually going for Versus Seeker. Versus Seeker first going to grab that in. Going to try to end the Dragapult player down to 1 to hopefully end their day and make their life miserable. If it's a trainer card, it could be very, very bad for the Dragapult player. Luxray, of course, going to knock that card out of their hand. Or not. Luxray being retreated. Charizard going to the active spot instead with Big Parasol. Big Parasol going to protect the bench from the effects of attacks. So that will include the effect of any damage counters there. So Claydol going to find some fresh cards. Looks like I was mistaken. This version of the deck is in fact playing Counter Energy. So I said earlier this deck wasn't running it. It looks like this is a slightly newer build than I was expecting. This deck has evolved a lot over the last couple months in the Eternal format. So the version he played at NAIC did not have it, so this is a little bit newer. So I see Pokemon Ranger in hand. Not really useful here. Discarding a Dracloak, grabbing Dragapult. So that Mysterious Treasure, pretty good. Unfortunately, still not a knockout. They need a little bit more. Can they get the Guzma? Let's see. Claydol once again digging very hard with that Claydol. Versus Seeker, that's Guzma, that's game. So that Lapras, unfortunately, going to go down, not going to survive a hit. There's easy pivot. Dragapult going to take that knockout. Going to take that last prize card and take the victory. Look, Dragapult is very good. It is easily a contender for one of the best decks currently in the Eternal format. And you've seen a good performance of it here. That control deck having a little bit of a shaky start, having a little bit of a shaky performance in general, but actually doing really well. This was game 1 of the finals in June. So this deck was not bad. It was good. It just had quite the match on its hands to deal with. So anyway, let's look at these deck lists. So up first, we have the Charizard EX Bunnelby Control deck. This is basically using Charizard as a means of powering up your Pokemon for attacking, but it does give you the option to use Charizard as an attacker if it is necessary. However, often you're going to be using it to power up something like Luxray to use its attack fairly early on, so you can preserve your double colorless energy, or to power up something like Bunnelby to get it moving and using something like Rototiller to mill through your opponent's deck. Either way, your goal here is to basically run your opponent out of resources or make it so they can't attack you and just kind of deck themselves out. Some interesting cards to highlight here include the ever-present Faba. Faba, of course, going to Lost Zone a special energy or a Pokemon tool attached to one of your Pokemon. And then, of course, there is Team Rocket's Trickery. Team Rocket's Trickery is very similar to Mars from Ultra Prism, but the effect here is draw 2 cards, then your opponent discards a card from their hand. So again, fairly similar. Other disruption options, of course, we saw Unfair Stamp actually used in the game. Parallel City is going to put down the opponent's bench just size 3, so only 3 bench Pokemon. And, of course, the last very interesting piece that has popped up in a number of lists is Cessation Crystal. Cessation Crystal going to shut off Pokemon powers, Pokebodies, Pokepowers, so long as it's attached to your active Pokemon. Lots of interesting cards here. Overall, the strategy didn't quite execute here in this video, but the deck list is nevertheless very fun and very potent in the right hands. And next up, and finally, we have Dragapult EX. This list is a bit newer than I thought it was when I was initially recording the commentary for this video, but all the same, still pretty fun. We do see some innovations like the counter energy, the POW hand extension that came into these lists a little bit later. Lance Prism Star, of course, a favorite card of mine that this particular pilot took from my list and integrated into theirs. Lance Prism Star, of course, did not show up at all in this particular matchup because, you know, your opponent has to take prize cards for that to happen. They do need to take a knockout. Not going to happen when you're playing against this particular control build in this matchup. But really, Dragapult is not that dissimilar from its standard counterpart. Here it has access to double dragon energy, which is basically double rainbow for your dragon Pokemon. Counter energy, if Dragapult goes behind on prize cards, it becomes a double rainbow as well. And then, of course, there are fun cards like that Lance Prism Star, which allow you to just plop 2 dragon Pokemon from your deck onto your bench with no need to evolve. So Dragapult, straight to the bench, pretty cool stuff. Overall, you do have stuff like Stormy Mountains to search out your Pidgey, and of course your Dreepy to get them into play. And then because that Pidgey is electric type and exists, it can, because it can be gotten out that way, of course, it can also evolve up into Pidgeot in both the Fire Red Leaf Green version and Pidgeot EX. And either one can use Quick Search to find a card in the deck, which is super potent. Overall, Pokemon Ranger, probably the biggest innovation from this player in this build. Very important actually in some control matchups, including Light Jolteon, which this player played to the July tournament, and we'll be seeing that next week. And against hand-locking decks, or item locks in specific, like Banette, this particular card can just clear the effect of the attack from Banette EX and bring you back to life effectively if you've been item locked via attack. All in all, Dragapult is a super potent deck in Eternal format, and more so than it probably could ever hope to be in the standard format, just because it has so many different options available to it in Eternal that just straight up don't exist, and standard and probably never will again. Anyway, that is all for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'll see you again in the next video.